When you picture India's first train journey back in 1853, you probably imagine the big, grand spectacle, right? The cheering crowds, the steam billowing. But the real story, the one that often gets lost, isn't about the triumphant finish. It's about the incredible human struggle it took just to lay down the very first few feet of track. And that quote, it just nails it. This wasn't some simple engineering project. No, this was a brutal, physical war against the land itself.
And this war, well, it was fought almost entirely by hand. Before any engine could even think about warring to life, the earth had to be tamed, inch by painful, painstaking inch.
Now, what's really fascinating here is what you don't see on this slide. There were no bulldozers, no hydraulic cranes, none of the machines we take for granted. Just try to picture it. Thousands of men working under a brutal sun, literally carving a path through rock and soil with nothing but hammers and chisels. Every single inch of that 34-kilometer route was shaped by raw, back-breaking human power. Okay, so once the path was finally carved out, the next problem was maybe even bigger. How on earth do you move these massive icons of the Industrial Revolution using the tools of the ancient world? That's right. The very hearts of this railway, the giant steam locomotives, were foreign creations. They had to be shipped in from thousands of miles away, which just added this whole other incredible layer of difficulty to the entire thing. Think about the journey these engines took. Their names were Sahib, Sindh, and Sultan. They were forged in England, taken apart, packed into giant crates, and sailed all the way across the ocean. But the craziest part? The final leg of their journey. These massive iron boilers and heavy wheels were loaded onto traditional bullock carts and literally dragged through the streets of Bombay to get to the new railway line.
This slide really shows you the heart of the whole project, doesn't it? On one hand, you have the most cutting-edge technology of the 19th century, these symbols of speed and industrial might, and on the other, you have them being moved by the sheer raw strength of animals and men, a method that hadn't really changed for hundreds of years. It was a mind-blowing collision of two different eras.
So you have this physical collision of old and new. But the cultural collision? Whew! That was a whole other story. When this machine finally arrived, people didn't just see it as a piece of technology. They saw it as something almost supernatural. Yeah, for the local population who had never ever seen anything like it, the train was terrifying. Its size, its incredible noise, its raw power. It felt less like a machine and more like some kind of captured monster. And the rumors were just wild. People whispered that the British had somehow managed to chain actual demons to the carriages to make them move. That loud hissing steam, that was the demon's angry breath. There were even all kinds of socially charged rumors flying around about the grease used on the axles, which stirred up a lot of early tension. And yet, you know what's powerful? Human curiosity. Despite all the fear and all the wild stories, when the day of the first journey finally came, that fear started to turn into fascination. A huge crowd gathered because they just had to see this iron demon for themselves. But this thing wasn't just a technological marvel. It was basically a social revolution on wheels. In a society that was so strictly divided by caste, the train's 14 carriages created this radical new kind of space. For the very first time, people from completely different walks of life were literally rubbing shoulders, packed into the same small wooden boxes. It was a huge, unintentional social experiment. Okay, so 30 kilometers an hour, that sounds like a crawl to us today, right? But you have to put yourself back in 1853. For people whose entire world moved at the speed of a person walking or a bullock cart, this felt like flying. It completely changed the definition of time and distance.
All right, let's dive into the journey itself, that one historic day when pretty much everything changed. The amount of public interest was just off the charts. Over 500,000 people, just try to picture that for the time, lined the entire route just to catch a glimpse of this machine as it thundered by.
And the cost? It was absolutely astronomical. Each mile of track cost about 1 lakh rupees. In the 1850s, that was a fortune. It just goes to show you how critical this project was to the British Empire. So after all those years of struggle, of construction, of controversy, the journey itself was over in just 75 minutes. A trip that would have normally taken a whole day was now done in just over an hour. When that train pulled into Thane, The crowd just erupted. But here's the thing. They weren't just celebrating a successful trip. They were celebrating a complete shift in their reality. In that moment, the world as they knew it had literally just shrunk.
But that first 75-minute journey, it was only the beginning. It was the very first thread in what would become this vast, complex iron web that would stretch across the entire subcontinent.
So the railway became this two-sided coin. It was a genuine lifeline for people, moving food and connecting communities like never before. But at the exact same time, it was an instrument of imperial control, allowing the British to move troops and supplies with incredible speed, tightening their iron grip. It's just wild to think that the massive network we have today, it all started with this one single, hard-won piece of track. From those first 34 kilometers, the network has just exploded to over 68,000 kilometers today. It's truly become the backbone of the entire nation and a real testament to the power of that first, really audacious idea. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The next time you see a train, just remember that underneath all that steel, there are countless untold stories. Stories of incredible struggle, of fear, and of a world being remade from the ground up. Every great leap of progress is always built on a foundation that we hardly ever get to see.